I want to explain the origins of the book was really understanding a sort of topography of Apple that hadn't really been written about, and that's called the manufacturing design engineer. So in a sort of Apple product cycle, we all know about the tip of the pyramid, and that's called industrial design, and that's run by Johnny Ive. Johnny Ive and his 12 or 24 people would really come up with like the substance, the look and feel of something. So if you've ever wondered why the iPod is sort of sleek white on the front and a chrome back, that's Johnny and his team. They're the ones who come up with translucent plastics to introduce the iMac in 1998. They're also the ones that sort of determine with Steve Jobs that the iPhone is going to be pure glass, no keyboard. It's someone else's job, and it's a painful job, to figure out how to actually execute that and fit in all the electronics, and it takes a certain different kind of genius. So you've got ID at the top, and then they throw it over the fence to product design, which is PD, so ID and then PD. We write about those as well. The third category is the group that I think has been ignored over the last 30 years, and they play an instrumental role in Apple operations. It's called manufacturing design, or MD. These are the groups of people that would fly over to Asia in general and China in particular to train, audit, supervise, and install hundreds of millions of dollars worth of machinery and later billions of dollars worth of machinery in other people's factories. So the line I use is that in the same way that Uber is the largest taxi provider in the world without owning any cars, Apple, using MD, figures out how to manufacture at maniacally obsessive levels as if they own it, but they don't own it. So they put this machinery in other people's factories, and what that allows them to do is tag the Apple machines and take unprecedented control, but without actually owning any of the factories in question, which means that they don't have to pay for the workers when the workers are not building Apple products and so forth. Now this is a strategy that allows Apple to really be who it is today, a $3 trillion company. But what I got interested in is there's a geopolitical element here, which is that by having this obsessiveness over quality and then having so much success with the iPod in particular, and then the iPhone, remember the iPhone goes from about 5 million units in 2007 to about 250 million in 2015. Engendered in this effect of having these engineers go across dozens and later hundreds of factories in China to train was just technology transfer on an epic scale. So by not investing in the United States, Apple sort of accidentally contributed to the hollowing out of American industry, and at the same time, they began up-arming, in a sense, our biggest adversary. Now, that wasn't the case in the 2000s. We had an American consensus that we were inculcating the next great democracy in China, and so the trade made all sorts of sense. But once Xi Jinping comes into office in 2013 and really takes China in a belligerent direction, the geopolitics really shift to some degree. And then we find ourselves in a really strange position where, wait a minute, why is America's greatest company sending over America's best engineers to train in advanced electronics? Hundreds of factories that can use these skills not just to dominate electric vehicles and smartphones, but potentially build military weaponry with these sorts of skills. And insofar as there's been some criticism of this online, people have said, well, Patrick seems to want to just keep China in its place and not allow them to flourish or something. And that's really not the case at all. It's the consolidation, right? It's the quarter-century investment in a single country that is problematic, and it's not doing it in America that is problematic. So I sort of had the contours of this story a solid 2 years ago, because I knew that Xi Jinping, when he came into office in 2013, really goes after Apple within 36 hours of becoming president. And he goes after them by having state-sponsored media attack Apple for warranty differences. And that's sounding not very significant. It's going to become very significant once we get John entering the picture here. But basically, Apple is confused as to why they're being attacked. And this leads to their political awakening where, we know that they outsource their manufacturing to a company like Foxconn. What we probably don't know is that they really outsourced their government relationships to Foxconn as well. So Foxconn was really playing a role of deriving the orders from Apple and sort of parlaying that into free machinery, free land, necessary labor coming from the hinterlands of China to work in these factories. And Apple really didn't have any political savvy by the time Xi Jinping enters office. That really changes quickly. It actually does take about 2 years, but they begin to come up with a counter-narrative. And is, in a sense, the biggest thesis of the book, is this part 5 in the book, where Apple hires or names these people. They call themselves the Gang of Eight, and their role is basically to come up with a narrative to placate local officials, placate federal officials, and put Apple's operations into a language that China can understand. And in a sense, what they come up with is a narrative of, you have no idea how much we're contributing to your own companies, to what Beijing calls Made in China 2025, a directive to support indigenous innovation. And so, irony of all ironies, what Chinese companies realize around 2016, 2017 is the best way to support indigenous innovation is to work with the mother of all capitalist companies, Apple.